Hey y'all, we've been talking about scope in CSS, specifically the @scope rule. You know, the concept of scope is broader than just @scope in CSS, but that's what we're talking about in this video. And we've covered already a couple of niche things that it can do, donut scope and proximity scope. Those are two other videos. We're going to look at one more cool little niche feature of @scope in CSS. And again, this is in Chrome and Safari now and flagged in Firefox, so it should be out in late 2025, probably for general usage. You know, you always got to be a little careful about browser support, but at least it's not like crazy long distant future feature. CSS moves pretty fast these days, and we can count on that. There's a whole bunch of information about scope generally in this blog post because I did a presentation on it. And this is the last little feature that I want to talk about that I don't think it has like a specific name. So I'm calling DOM blasters. Because it has to do with putting a style tag, like not a link tag, how you link up normally CSS from HTML, but a style tag where you can put inline style. It's not the same as inline styles, but it's in the inline style block, like literally the style tag. We'll see that in a minute. And when you do that and place it just wherever you want to in the DOM, you have access to the parent node to style without having to name a selector or anything, which is a really unusual and perhaps maybe powerful feature in CSS. We can actually play with it a little bit right here in DevTools. Like I see Frontend Masters just shipped a new design for their courses page, and we have DevTools open and we can look around and play with stuff. Look, they have a grid of courses. So here's their complete intro to React V9. Maybe they wanted to call this one out specially or something. I'm just making stuff up here, but I see that there's a grid and the different items on the grid have carousel item as a class. But check this out. We're going to go edit as HTML, and it's going to give us the HTML, and I can write whatever I want in here. And then when I kind of click outside of it in DevTools, it re-renders that element. So I can just put a style tag in here, no special attributes on it or anything. And when I write @scope, what I'm saying is style this div, style the thing above it, but I don't have to say .carousel item or make up another selector to reach for it. @scope has already done that work. That's why I call it a DOM blaster, I guess, is because it's not as like fragile as having to come up with a class to match it or anything like that. It just reaches up and grabs the parent. A way long time ago in Chrome, they used to have the scoped attribute on style that would do this. It's back. We have it. You just write @scope and you've got it. So we could do something like, I don't know, border 2 pixel solid red. And as I click out of it, just that one element has 2 pixel solid red border. Ain't that neat? And even if I select onto carousel item in DevTools, it's saying that style comes from an @scope rule right on there. I could go grid column span 2 or something to stretch it across 2. Anyway, I have unlimited styling power here, which is nice. Inline style blocks have media queries and hover states and lots of stuff that inline styles don't have. So I do think this is neat for a whole bunch of reasons. For one thing, maybe we could reach for this a whole lot more if we wanted to, particularly for any elements that are lazy loaded that come in later. It's possible they could just bring in their own styles, and instead of making another network request for all the styles, they could just come in a style block. From this @scope, and I can edit as HTML here to play with it, you can do all kinds of other stuff. We can do nesting within here. We could say, what is actually before we do that, what is this? An H something, an H2? Sure, we'll go edit as HTML. We can nest from here and say H2, the color of that thing is pink or something. And it's not going to necessarily it depends on how strong the other selector that applies to it. Let's see if it goes pink. Oh, it totally did. I was just going to say, if there was a really strong selector making it color white or something, this wouldn't necessarily override it unless we write a powerful enough selector to do it. But the CSS on Frontend Masters, of course, is masterful and not too strong to prevent any problems like that. Okay, pretty cool. I did mess around with, at one time, this idea. Look at this, all these identical cards here. I made a card component in Pug, and it's got this list on it, and it's got a bunch of special styles on it. The CSS is, let's see, I don't know, a couple hundred lines or 150 lines of code that style what one of these cards is. And in one case, what I'm calling the normal CSS approach, it just links up this style file in the head, and that applies to all these cards, and they all get it, like regular old CSS, nothing special. And then I did the @scope approach, where it doesn't link up that CSS file in the head, but every single one of these elements, I suppose I could look in DevTools to show you, each one of these card elements has a style within it that uses @scope on it of .card. I'm just being real specific about it, and drops that whole, 150 lines of CSS within the card. So it's very, very repetitive over and over and over, but the performance of this page is perfectly fine. Now, I don't know if it's the best test in the world. It's not 150 super different components. There's no JavaScript on this page. There's not a lot of interactivity aside from some hovers and box shadows, which can be a little heavy sometimes. It's not necessarily like huge proof of anything, but I was trying to get a feel for like, is this a super dumb thing as a way to style a complete website? Like, what if we didn't link any CSS in the head? All we did is at a component by component level, we put a scoped style block, a DOM blaster, right in the component that it's trying to style. Not every single element, but a reasonably scoped, like a card element would have one, or a header component would have one, that type of thing. Maybe that's the way to go. And I only say that as like, why would we give up on regular CSS? We're not. We're still writing regular CSS. But it's not in the head. It's loading the styles just as it needs them, rather than being a render blocking resource in the head for every page. I'm not sure I'm going to change the world here, but like, maybe it is kind of a cool thing to do. It's interesting that the web platform is giving us this ability to do. A lot of people really like the idea of not having to come up with names at a component level that could be fragile or poorly named or something like that. So it's a possibility there. I think generally this style of like, I just need a one-off style and I'm just going to inject it right into the DOM wherever I need it is probably the number one use case for this sort of thing. So yeah, I was playing with like writing a blog post on my WordPress site, right? I happen to have bought the domain name Coyier.com recently, and I was just thinking of that, and I was like, if I want to style stuff as one-offs in this blog post, but have it like last over time as this blog evolves over the years and everything, an inline style block is not the worst way to do it. Like, I could write at the bottom of this blog post, I'm like, any ideas or something? Like, what should I do with this domain name? All it does is redirect to myself right now. This is going to, if I hit save and like preview this blog post, I think I'll have to refresh to get the nice little link in the header here. Blah, blah, blah. Here's my blog post. Any ideas? What if I want to style any ideas? What are my choices to do that? WordPress offers some built-in thing with blocks, but I'm talking about how would I target this? Well, I could give it a class, and then I could write CSS somewhere that applies to the page that targets that class, and I could style it. Or what I'm proposing is we could write a little chunk of custom HTML with a style block in it that says @scope, and then that we can essentially make to style this. Now, these are going to be two separate elements, siblings of each other in this blog post, but if I select them both, somehow, both of them, I select this and this, I just hit the shift key to do it, and then say group. The way a group works in this particular WordPress setup is it just makes a div around them both. So if I refresh this now, it's going to look exactly the same, but it's going to have a div wrapper, the group, that wraps this and that, although I seem to have missed. So I want to take this and put it up inside the group. Boop. Did that do it? I think it did. So now the paragraph element and the style element are right next to each other, and the scope is going to be the div ahead of it. So if I write scope and then I wrote P, now I'm attaching this or whatever. There's also this idea, little thing to know about scope, that you can also target the thing specifically with :scope. It's the same kind of thing as doing ampersand if you're using nesting, but scope has like a class level of specificity to it. This is also selecting the div. You just don't need to do it at all. You can just put the styles kind of raw in there. But this is like one class worth of specificity. So if it's already being styled with a class, this might help you win in a pretty reasonable kind of way. Just a thing to know about scope there. P, and then we'll do the old color red trick to make sure that kind of a sanity check. That's the kind of thing we call that. Make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It is. Cool. And we could just make it, I don't know, we could make it rotate or something, or we could have an animation on it. Animation, I don't know, do something cool over 2 seconds. What does do something cool do? We could say at keyframes, do something cool, and then 2 rotate 360 degrees or something. We would want to make that happen linearly, otherwise it's going to default to some easing, right? Did I write that correctly? I hadn't planned on doing this, but now it's this giant paragraph element that's rotating. We'd probably want to make the P like width equals fit content. Should that do it? Linear, and then infinite, so it doesn't just run once. Any ideas? Rotating? That might even make it into some RSS readers that support limited style, or the style tag just comes along and they think that's okay, kind of. Isn't that fun? Like, I didn't have to put this in the site style sheet. I didn't have to deploy any code. I didn't have to do anything exotic. I just wrote a little extra style that happens to apply to just that one thing, and that will last over time. I think those little one-offs is a great use for a DOM blaster, but I did want to plant the seed that it's possible that you could architect a whole site this way instead of using something like CSS and JS or CSS modules or something that's dedicated just to scoping, because we have this kind of powerful scoping concept in the web platform now. So a little food for thought there. That's a DOM blaster. I know that name's not going to stick, but maybe it will, or maybe you'll come up with a better name. But scope in a style block, randomly in the DOM, selects the parent. That's what you need to know. Have a good one.